you don't really know who you are or what you are until you put a really big challenge in front of you.
Fear is an asset and ally here to help you be magnificent.
This crazy, silly, stupid idea to run across the Sahara Desert.
You did make it this time, but you said if you didn't make it, you would try again and again.
Everybody's connected to nature, connected to music, to their families, and now we're going to build a world that doesn't have racism and war and starving kids.
I kept telling myself, run at it, and just keep smiling.
Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome back to the Extra Mile. My name is Gene Gerkoff. It's another beautiful morning in New York City, running on the East River. Got the sun coming up to my east, which is my left. Absolutely spectacular. It's just a little bit of a sliver of the buildings right now. The leaves are a golden yellow. Lots of people out running. Looks like they're getting in their last few miles before the New York City Marathon, or maybe the Marine Corps Marathon, which I think is this weekend. We'll be releasing this podcast the week of the New York City Marathon. It's a very special New York City Marathon inspired interview with a true legend, Bill Rodgers. Bill Rodgers is a 4-time winner of the New York City Marathon and a 4-time winner of the Boston Marathon, and a true legend in the sport. Really running, it's hard to imagine that running would be where it is today without Bill Rodgers. I mean, he's like, you go back to like him and Frank Shorter and Prefontaine, like these are like the golden era of running. It's like the Beatles and the Stones. You'll hear in college his roommate was Jeff Galloway, which is just incredible. So, I mean, think about like the melting pot of what that must have been like back then. Anyway, you'll hear it in the interview. Could not ask for a better interview for the New York City Marathon than the legend Bill Rodgers. I met him in Boxborough, Massachusetts, which is where he lives. We went for a beautiful walk in this perfectly picturesque New England farming field that was just freshly mowed. Bill says he does a lot of his running there on the trails. And man, you couldn't have asked for a nicer day. I actually interviewed Bill and Bobby Gibb, who we released last week on the same day. If you didn't listen to the interview with Bobby Gibb, make sure you go back and check that out. Got a little bit of a subway going on above me on the Manhattan Bridge, if you want to hear that. Anyway, I drove up to Boxborough in the morning, left my apartment at like 4 in the morning, got to Boxborough, interviewed Bill, drove out to Gloucester, it's about an hour away from there, interviewed Bobby, got in the car, drove 5 hours home to New York City, listened to Bruce Springsteen the whole ride back. It was a great day. And so grateful to Bill for taking the time to walk with me. You know, I was going up there for like a New York City Marathon inspired podcast. I wanted to get some wisdom. And I'll share this with you because, you know, when you interview someone like Bill, or when I interview someone like Bill, I always want to know, like, what was the difference? What was the difference in the time that you won or the time that you didn't win, or what was special about all those races? When you win the New York City Marathon 4 times, when you win the Boston Marathon 4 times, what's different about those races? What's special? What are you learning about yourself? And, you know, I was expecting something like, oh, I learned this little secret about how to dig deep to this little place inside me that I didn't know existed, and find this extra bit of courage or grit to push me through. And that's what I was expecting, or maybe hoping for, a little secret about that. But that's not what I got. With Bill, the answer came out, and you'll hear it. Every time I kind of prodded at that question, he always answered with it was always about who was there. Who was he running with? Oh, I was running with this, and these people were there, and it was the camaraderie and the spirit of the day and being with other people and the social element. And as he was saying it, maybe for the nth time in the interview, it struck me how much that is what draws me to the sport too. It's about the people. It's about being with people. And the amazing spirit, not just of the marathon and everybody there, but the amazing spirit of going for a run with your friends, or doing a track workout, a really hard track workout with some friends. I've been running with the Brooklyn Track Club this season, and it's been so much fun, so I want to send a big shout out to them. Oh, hey, Cindy. She's actually with the Brooklyn. I did my track workouts with her yesterday. Just passed her on the trail here. Anyway, it's all about the people. So for all of you out there who running the New York City Marathon this weekend, take a look around. The people there with you. Feel that energy. Soak it in. That's what it's all about. And for those of you who aren't running the New York City Marathon, doesn't matter if you're in a crowd of 40,000 people or just you and a friend, get out there with a friend, go for a run. Feel that spirit, feel that connection. That's what it's all about. So huge thanks to Bill for taking this walk with me in Boxborough. Before we jump into it, as always, I want to say a huge thanks to our partners at Aftershocks. They make the amazing open ear bone conduction headphones. They don't go inside your ear, they rest on your temples. And through bone conduction, which is like tiny little micro vibrations that you can't even feel, that's how they get the sound into your ears. So you can go out for a run or a walk, listen to your podcast like this one, listen to your music, still hear everything else that's going on around you. I love it. Like when I go trail running, I still get to feel connected to nature, get to hear the birds and the trees and the trails under my feet, get to hear Max in his stroller. When I'm running out here in the city, I get to hear the people around me, cars, which is important for safety. And as I've said so many times, my favorite thing about them is how comfortable they are. Since they don't go inside my ears, they never fall out of my ears, which is a problem that I've had with every other pair of headphones. And then one more thing I'll say, which is really important. They are sponsoring us. They're going out of their way. They're going the extra mile to support us. There's a lot of other things that they could be doing with their marketing budget. And they are choosing to spend it by supporting all of us because they are a company that truly cares. And for me, that counts for a lot. So next time you're looking to get headphones, make sure you check them out. charitymiles.org/aftershocks. That's AFTERSHOKZ. And huge thanks to their whole team. We love working with you. Huge thanks to all of you out there for joining us. Huge thanks to Bill Rodgers for taking this walk with me. Now, wherever you are, turn up your volume and turn on your Charity Miles and come along for the walk or the run with me and the legendary Boston Billy, Bill Rodgers, in Boxborough, Massachusetts. Every mile matters.
Steel Farm. And this is where I do a lot of my running. And, ever since I was a kid, I always loved nature and the trails. That's how I kind of grew up as a kid in Newington, Connecticut, outside of Hartford. I was born in Hartford, me and my brother Charlie and two sisters. So when they started cross country in my high school, it was the first year, and we ran short distances. They didn't even have 5K then. But we would run out from our school and out to this little park, Mill Pond Park, and kind of like a bike path and run like 1.5 miles or something. That was our run. That was it, But the more you get into running and when you really become a runner, I think you really are tied in with Mother Nature. It doesn't mean that you don't become a road racer like I did. I became a road racer and a marathoner on the roads, because I was not so much a track racer. I like cross country. But I got into the longer distances,
Wow. So I'm sure we'll get it. We're actually recording right now, but
yep.
Bill Rodgers, thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you, Gene. It's good to be on this show and your podcast.
So, but can you, I'm just so...
It's pretty here. Yeah.
No words to describe how spectacular it is what we're looking at. Can you describe for the people who are hopefully walking and running along with us where we are, what we're looking at?
Yeah, this is an old farm site. This is an old farm site with a huge field. I don't know how many acres, but the land was donated to the town by a family here. And maybe the Steele family. There's a couple old barns here, and they're renovating, fixing up. And there's a conservation trust, so you can't build on it. And so I do a lot of the trails in and out here. I run with a couple of my buddies here, my girlfriend Karen, and we just run through the trails here. And people ride horseback through here. It's truly beautiful in the fall and everything. And
these are just starting to change.
Yeah.
The fall. New England, you can't even ask. We're in Boxborough, Massachusetts?
We're in Boxborough, Mass. That is about 30 miles from Boston, and I've lived here about 15 years. I lived in a couple of towns in Massachusetts. And, but when I moved to Boston, I had quit running. I was an ex-runner, retired runner, because for me, running was running with your friends, your teammates.
So actually, that's maybe a place that I wanted to start, because I've read your book, and I'd love to share some of that journey with our members who maybe haven't read your book. And by the way, they should get your book and read it, because it's inspiring. And I'm probably going to release this. We've got the New York City Marathon coming up. I know you'll be there.
Yes.
So for all of our members and people out there, look at that dog. It's a nice looking dog.
All right. Obstacle course for you to see if you're paying attention.
As if this
I had a golden once.
As if this wasn't like beautiful
dogs.
enough. There's like the most picturesque golden retriever that just
It's
like just completing the picture. So I'll probably be releasing this right before the marathon. Is going to fire everyone up, and would love to know how you came to the marathon. But how did you come to running?
Yeah, I came to running when I was 15, and they had the gym class mile. When President Kennedy came into office, 1960, and we started to, of course, we were in a competitive thing a little bit with Russia in those days, with Sputnik and everything, and the space race,
right?
Which culminated with the U.S. landing on the moon, of course, 1969. But President Kennedy was so inspirational to our generation. I still think today, his words, think not what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country? Not that I was thinking of that so much, but he was an idealistic person, in a lot of ways, I think. And runners are like that too, in certain ways. So anyway, they were starting cross country, my high school, and in the gym class mile, because there was can you do push-ups? Can you do sit-ups? Can you run a mile? And all that sort of thing. It was an emphasis on our country kind of being active a little bit and competitive, as we are as a country. So they ran the gym class mile. I was a sophomore, and I ended up running the fastest time.
Oh, do you remember what your time was?
I think it was 5 minutes. Wow. No, it might have been 6:10. Yeah, it was like 6:10 or something. But so my brother Charlie and Jason, our lifetime friend who we grew up with as kids, we were very active kids. We rode our bikes everywhere when we were kids. This is the 50s and 60s, So we rode our bikes. So we got pretty fit. Plus we were in the Boy Scouts. We camped out. We hiked to fishing ponds, I used to have a BB gun. Jason had his, little mini. We didn't have high-powered rifles, nothing like that, but we were active outdoor like kids.
Right.
Because we lived in a development just when we moved out of Hartford to a little suburb, and there were woods. So all kids love to be in the woods,
Yeah.
And so anyway, we ran cross-country, and our coach, we later found out, went to Boston University, and we knew he had been a track runner, which was like, whoa, he really knows what he's doing, And he did, because he didn't have us run so much. It's very unlike today, where the science of running and physical training is so high level today. It's almost very intimidating, I think. And I really believe in keeping it simple, because that always works. And that's what he did with us as well. And so we didn't get injured, And what was unusual about our life as young athletes was there were no girls' teams, because this is 1963. And the International Olympic Organization had restricted women's involvement in distance running. It was very backwards, as we all know, of course.
Right.
And most of us guy runners knew that 50 years ago. It was like, but we didn't have the power to change it, But we tried to all in our various different ways. Men and women, I think, tried to do that. But anyway, cross-country was just kind of fun. And we didn't run very much, but then we would go into the weight room. Because I also ran track, and Charlie ran the mile, and Jason ran the mile, became our Newington High School record holder. And we ran in a big grass field like this. In a grass field, and the coach just put down lime in the field, and we'd run. It was a fifth of a mile. So we had to do 5 laps to the mile. It was a long mile.
Wow.
But I'll tell you, the day President Kennedy was shot, I went out to that grass track, and I ran a mile myself alone. I ran 5 minutes and 20 seconds. No, that was my first mile. I was trying to break the 5-minute mile. I think because of what happened, it impacted me so much. I think I ran like 5:04. The quest is to break the 5-minute mile, and so.
That was my goal in high school. I never quite made it.
Yeah, it's like, it's a quest for everybody. And, but, that's how I got started. And my brother Charlie is still a runner today. Mm-hmm. And anyway, we ran through a few years of high school. But after high school, we went together. Jason and Charlie went to Central Connecticut. I went to Wesleyan in Connecticut. And we weren't together running. So we didn't run together much,
Right. But, I remember reading that, and then I was listening to some other interviews with you talking about your time at Wesleyan. How did you decide to go to Wesleyan?
Yeah.
That's actually the first school that I looked at when I was looking at schools.
Yeah.
And I decided right away that it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But after listening to some of your interviews and reading your book, I was like, man, if I went to Wesleyan, I would have been a lot faster. Because you were at Wesleyan, like the primordial. Oh, wow, look at that. That's a giant dragonfly.
Yeah, he's a beauty. We used to try to catch him. You were there
with like Amby, Burfoot, and Jeff Galloway. That's like Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, and Willie Nelson together. Like,
of course,
it's like the primordial stew.
Yeah, but the thing is, Gene, Jeff Galloway wasn't Jeff Galloway then. He was just Jeff Galloway, Wesleyan student and athlete, But he always had that in him. And I could see that. Jeff was, he had a love for the sport, and so did Amby Burfoot. But Amby Burfoot, his deal was he came out of Mystic, Groton, Connecticut, where Johnny Kelly, two-time Olympian and Boston champion, lived. So he was his cross-country coach. And so this is just the stew, the mix, the power of the Boston Marathon influencing everybody in New England or nearby. And Amby ended up running cross country for Johnny. And but I went to Wesleyan because I was looking at some different colleges at UConn and Providence and Holy Cross and so forth. And I wanted to go to Colby College. I got put on the wait list there because this woman I was interested in and had dated in high school was going there, but they had a math requirement and I wasn't good in math, so I didn't go there. But what happened was I was at the state cross country champs, and Amby Burfoot was there, and his younger brother Gary was a year younger than me, and I was racing him, and so I won that race. So Amby kind of said, "Bill, are you interested in maybe going to Wesleyan?" I said, "Huh? Yeah, I guess so. I'll check it out, and so that's how I ended up going to Wesleyan and meeting.
So Amby recruited you to Wesleyan.
He recruited me, yes. And I got to know Jeff.
He won the Boston Marathon when he was a senior there, right? So while you were there...
We were roommates that year, 1968. And this is the deal. He was truly kind of what you would almost call a superstar, way ahead of me. Jeff was very good on the track as well as cross country and distance, but Amby could beat everybody. He was ahead of everybody. And I remember the day he won, because we were at a track meet with UConn, University of Connecticut, and we got the word, Amby won. I was like, huh? You won the Boston Marathon? What the heck is the Boston Marathon, So I didn't really understand what it was, because it wasn't on TV then, And he didn't come back wearing the medal or anything. I never saw his medal, but we got phone calls in our dorm, media wanted to talk to Amby Burfoot. It was Mr. Burfoot there. They would say, it was incredible. So, but Amby, he was training so hard. Because it's like I said in my book, and my book is called Marathon Man. It's about becoming a marathoner, becoming a runner even. Mm-hmm. There's 2 stories in it, as you know, mm-hmm. Gene. And but everyone has a little bit different story, but Amby influenced me, so did Jeff, and everyone plays a role in your life, I think. My parents did. My brother Charlie, Jason, your friends, your teammates are so key. And there's luck involved too. If you whether or not you can hit your goals. I never thought I was going to be a marathoner like Amby Burfoot.
At that time, what were you running? You were racing 10Ks?
No, I never ran a 5K in college. I never ran a 10K.
What were you racing back then?
I was a 2-miler. That was the longest distance we could run in high school in the 60s, in Connecticut. But I liked the 2-mile. I wasn't quick. I didn't realize then that there was such a thing as fast twitch muscle fibers and slow twitch. And I was clearly slow twitch, I was geared for that physically, and it turned out mentally too, and I discovered that day when I had the relay leg and I got left standing still. I was a senior, and a freshman from the other team left me standing still, like over a 200. And I was like, wow, what's wrong with me? So the more you can learn about the sport, you learn that it isn't that something's wrong with you or something. You just have to find the distance for yourself.
Right.
Find the distance you like. And what do you want from running? What do you want from it,
And so back then, what did you want from it?
I loved being on the team. It was something different to be on a team, It was very powerful. And we see that today in mass media, with football or something. But cross country is just as passionate. And I think the door is more open, of course, because you don't sit on a bench. You're really out there. And I found that sometimes I hated it because there was always a kind of love-hate thing, at least for me.
Right.
And I think for a lot of people, for all of us, with running, because we are out there with Mother Nature. And we're out there all year long. Football players are out there part of the year, but we're out there all year long. And but during the winter, we would go indoors. We would run in the corridors, and we'd be running like 400 meters and trying not to crash.
On the banks.
Yeah, off the walls, and you'd run on basketball courts. You'd run the 2-mile on a basketball court. And the tracks were all dirt, like at MIT, University of Connecticut. I ran my first 2-mile. I think I ran 11:20. But then I started to improve. And I remember a chemistry teacher there, Mr. Grant, and he was a supporter of us young track athletes because it was kind of new for the school. And I remember I ran like 10:17 indoors finally. I took a minute down. And suddenly I was like contending to be I was kind of like a little bit of a faster kid now. And I started to understand the sport a little bit, And then there was no internet then, so you would get a printout of who were the faster kids in the state. And I remember we'd go down to Middletown, from Newton, and have to race. Parmalee was down there, or Tim Smith from Norwich Free Academy, or Mike Brault. I still remember these names.
Remember the names.
Or Killer Ed Kowalski.
Killer Ed.
Oh man,
that sounds intimidating.
Killer Ed Kowalski gave me the video that is my favorite. I met him 40 years later. In high school, he was New England cross-country champion. But when I won the state champs in Connecticut, the Division A, he was on the side and on crutches. And he later told me, he said, I'm going to beat that guy. And he did. He beat me. But 40 years later, I don't think he was able to continue running. I don't know what happened. But I was at a little race in Southington, Connecticut, the Harvest Apple Festival, and he came up to me. I hadn't seen him in 50 years. And he gave me a tape of him and me racing in high school.
Wow.
Yeah, it was all his races because his dad was taken, Right. It was just that family connection and what it was like when you were a kid.
So how did you, one of the things that I wanted to get your insight on is the idea of a comeback. Mm-hmm. But in order to talk about that, maybe to go from, because you were in the Primordial Stew, Galloway, Amby, Burfoot in college, you're racing.
Yep.
But then somehow you fell out of it and even started smoking.
Yeah, I did.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
And then maybe we can how did you get back into it and find your way to the marathon?
I think really Wesleyan's Division III school, it's very academically oriented. Very hard for me. I barely got out. Amby was a really good student. Jeff Galloway was a really good student. I remember Amby would get back papers he'd written, and he'd be getting A's, and I would get a C- or, something like that. But anyway, I still loved our team, even though it was small. We had a really good coach, Coach Elmer Swanson, and we had a wonderful indoor dirt track we could go to, and we could get out into the countryside. We were out on the edge of Middletown, you know, and so it was pretty nice. But when my senior year came, you know, Amby had gone. Once, you know, I was not really a leader. I've always been kind of a follower, you know, so I needed someone to follow. I needed someone who was faster than me, stronger than me, and that was Amby and Jeff. Two of the top guys, you know, so I wasn't near them. But when they left, I was kind of floundering. Also, Gene, it was a very tough time in America because the Vietnam War, you know, was on. And I became very, you know, at Wesleyan, a lot of talk about politics and the war. And this is I graduated in 1970, you know, and I was against the war, our government's involvement in the war. And so, you know, at the time I got inducted into the U.S. military and all that, you know, because they did the draft.
You were drafted?
Yeah, they did the draft. And so I applied for conscientious objector status, and I was given that. You know, I liked some of my heroes. Martin Luther King was a hero. I remember the day he was shot. I was at Wesleyan, and all the black kids were, man, it was tricky. And Gandhi was another hero of mine. I liked him. Very simple. And, you know, that was the way I was, you know, but it was hard because a lot of people really supported the war then, and you know, it was like it was a tricky time. Anyway, I quit running because I don't know what's going to happen to me, you know. But then when they said, yeah, you can do selective service, you can do, you know what I really believe? I think everyone should do 1 year at least, maybe 2 years. They have the Peace Corps. Do something. You know, like Kennedy said, for your country. Just do a year, you know. And I was glad to do my selective service. You know, I worked in a hospital. Whew, that was an education, you know, and I saw people who were really struggling in life. And that was really powerful to do that. And
so you were doing that in Boston, right?
Yeah, so I moved to Boston. That's how I ended up moving to Boston. You know, I got a job, and Jason.
So when you get conscientious, just so because I'm clear, like when you get conscientious objective status, you do selective service.
It has to be based on your religious background and upbringing and your personal beliefs, and you know, it's pretty dead serious. Not everyone was willing to support me,
right, and
write a letter of support for me. My dad was a World War II guy, and so was my mom. You know, so, and, you know, and I had people say, well, why don't you do this? I said, no, you can't do that, you know. And so
when
anyway.
you got it, you were required to work at the hospital?
Yeah, you had to find some kind of a job.
Kind of a service.
2 years. 2 years. Just like you were in the military for 2 years, and it had to be low paying. So it was, but I don't care. You know, I mean, I really kind of liked that job in a way. I got to see what it was like to be in a hospital, and my mom had been a nurse's aide. Her mom was a nurse. I have a sister who was a nurse, so there's kind of a connection a little bit. But it was a very volatile time in America, and it was hard. But so I quit running, you know, and I had quit even because, you know, there was the student strike. 700 colleges, right when I was about to graduate, they shut down. Wow. There was no school. There's nothing. And so I was like, what is going on in this world? You know, it's crazy. And I had quit running around December that year because that's when everything was starting to get tough. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. You know, I would have gone to jail, you know, like Muhammad Ali went to jail, but I just did not support it. And that's the way it was.
And how did you find your way back into running?
You know, I moved to Boston, and it took me a while, but I was living there with my old high school teammate, Jason, who was a miler on our high school team, you know, and he also got conscientious objector status because it was starting to wind down. The American people were starting to say no. And so it was really tricky. And Jason worked in the parking lot, you know, and he had quit running too, but he never started smoking. But, you know, we were still fans of the sport. I think once you're a runner, you're always a runner. It's always in your mind. what that was like. So I would watch track meets on TV, but also we lived right half a mile from the finish line of the Boston Marathon, near the Fens, you know.
Right.
We had an apartment there, and we were roommates, and we said, let's go over and see the Boston Marathon. And so we went over there and saw, you know, and I saw Jeff Galloway running. You know, I watched it for 2 years, 71 and 72, you know, and I said, this is my own. And then I heard he had made our Olympic team. I used to run with Jeff, you know, I knew him. I said, what? You know, and so a number of things came together. I had a motorcycle, which I borrowed $1,000 from Jason. You know, he saved up money, and so I borrowed this used motorcycle. I was out at a pub with a friend of mine. Motorcycle got stolen.
Oh, gosh.
No, I had nothing. I had no money, nothing. Was a smoker. Wasn't really happy. That was the bottom, you know, sort of. So I, you know, so this had been building in me for a while, and I think maybe seeing the marathon motivated me again, you know, and because, you know, when you're running lifts all the boats. Lifts all our boats. So that is the deal. And so I joined the BAA, you know, because I started running. I joined the YMCA, the Boston YMCA first. And I started going over to use a rowing machine a little. They had this little upstairs indoor track.
Right.
Like 12 laps to a mile.
Yeah.
One of the classics.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and all the old timers were beating me. I still had my cigarettes, my Winstons, you know. And Jason and I'd get my Winstons, my half pint of gin, you know, and after work on a Saturday night, we go over to the Plowing Stars and listen to some music. Saw Bonnie Raitt playing over there, and all this stuff. So, but still, was in poverty, and you know, in the end, I felt like this is a dead end street. And when I worked in the hospital, I saw all these sick people, and one guy, I took him down to the operating room or tests and everything on a stretcher because I was an escort messenger. I took blood samples around, took people down to the morgue. This is tough stuff, you know, when you're seeing people really beat up. And I said, why? And this guy looked at my cigarette. He said, you should quit that. And then he went in his room and he lit up a cigarette. And I think he had emphysema, some real bad disease. And so things like this. Couldn't get to my rides. I hated taking the subway. I said, I joined the Y, then run to work a little bit. And so I started becoming a runner again. And then, you know, I went out to the Fens and I would run around the Fens. Beautiful little park in Boston, you know.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I remember running there.
Yeah, so that then started thinking of going to some races and starting to get fit. And the more you run, the less you want to smoke. It's very simple. Yeah,
I can imagine.
So after a while, I was done, you know, and then I decided, you know, I ran this 30K race in Boston, Silver Lake Dodge, it was called. It later became a marathon for a little while. I came in third.
Oh.
Yeah, I came in third, and Amby Burfoot won the race. It was in February. And so I ran in my blue jeans. This is 73. There was no good running gear.
God.
You know, there was only the old gray baggy sweats, and you froze to death half the time, you know. It was a terrible situation. So Amby won the race, and I hadn't seen him since Wesleyan. And the first prize was 4 tires, because put on by a tire company, Silver Lake Dodge. First prize, I don't think he had a car. Second place didn't have a car. I didn't have a car, you know. So we were all poor because running, there was no money in the sport then.
Right.
But anyway, Jock Semple from the Boston Athletic Association was there. He recruited me. I joined the BAA, and I went to start running for them. And my first marathon was Boston in 73. And I had a bad day. It was hot. You know, classic New England, you're caught in a vice. Or if you're from the Midwest or the West where it's cold, and suddenly within 6-7 days you're hitting 78 degrees and your body's not ready. And I didn't know how to pace myself. And Amby was trying to give me advice before the race. I saw him before. And he said, take it easy, it's going to be warm. And I didn't understand. You know, you come down that big hill in Hopkinton. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was like 10 miles. I can run 10 miles. Pretty good, but not the marathon, you know. And so I got beat up, and I made it to the top of Heartbreak Hill. And I was about 3 miles from where I lived in Jamaica Plain. And I don't know how I got back. I think I walked back to my room, to my where I was living then, you know, in 73. And then I decided, you know, I've got to, because I was really getting into running. And I had finished my selective service obligation and everything, you know. And I said, I've got to move out to California. I got to be, you know, the winner at Boston one year was John Anderson from Oregon, the West Coast. That's where the runners are. You know, you got to go out, you got to train in the sun and the heat. I got to get stronger. Yeah. What happened to me, you know? So I went out to California, my wife and I and our van and our cat, you know. Problem was, had no money and no contacts. This is before, you know, all the support came in the 90s or early 2000s.
So before everything.
Yeah, before, you know, the running boom was on because Frank Shorter had kicked that off in 72, you know, but the money wasn't there yet.
Right.
Yeah, the money hadn't come in, the support. You know, Nike was still mini company.
There's still Bill Bowerman ironing on the waffle soles.
Yeah. So it's still, you know, a developing sport in a lot of ways. So we went to California. Overwhelming to be in California. A zillion cars, you know, San Jose and everything. I said, I got to go back home. That's what you do. You know, you go back home.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
But meanwhile, I mean, that's interesting to think about that because, like, the New England tradition is, I think of New England as back then where the running was. I mean, Frank Shorter was from Connecticut, right?
Yeah, he lived in Middletown, New York, went to Yale, you know, but then later went down to Florida for law school, then went up with Galloway and Jack Batchelor, and he trained with the Florida Track Club first, you know, Barry Brown, a lot of top, Marty LaCory, a lot of top athletes lived in Florida, you know, but that is true. But
I guess you kind of had different camps because you had, you know, the Oregon stuff going on with Pre and...
Yeah. Yes.
And then you had the New England, you know, stuff going on up here, so it's kind of different.
Shorter was one of the first, very smart guy, to go to altitude to train. And so Boulder became a training mecca after Frank moved there and his success, 2 consecutive Olympic Games, and he was one of the best in the world on the track as well, won 4 national titles in cross country. I mean, Frank was the best in the world. He was the best in the world. You know, that's the way it was, you know, and Galloway made the Olympic team. Jack Batchelor succeeded, you know, so they're all trained together. So it was that altitude training thing. But at that time, it wasn't as well known, you know.
Right.
And I wasn't, I had quit running, you know. I was still, I don't know what I was going to do, but in the end, we moved back to Massachusetts, Connecticut area. I lived in Connecticut, Vernon, Connecticut a little while.
So then how did it plant a seed in your mind to go from smoking, you did your first Boston Marathon, had a bad day, to I want to see if I can make the Olympic team?
You know what I think it is? You're going to take your lumps. You're going to get beat up. This is like roller derby. Life is like roller derby.
What was like the mental? What was the mental story that you were telling yourself on those hard training days that you were saying, "I'm going to make the like"? How was that journey?
Oh, that took me a while. I was not thinking that way for a long time. No. But what it was, I realized that with the BAA, I needed a car. I needed to get a ride with someone in the BAA to train with them or something like that. They weren't that big a club then, you know. But a new running club started called the Greater Boston Track Club, started by a guy at Boston College. And I had gone to Boston College to get my master's in special ed. But I had joined Greater Boston first. This is the deal. And Jack McDonald and a guy named Bob Seveny, who later was influential with Joan Benoit Samuelson winning her Olympic gold medal. He was kind of like her coach. Right. And he was a good athlete and a good track coach and a Vietnam vet, by the way. And we used to have a lot of interesting conversations. Yeah, and he was a tough runner, but super nice guy. And anyway, this team, we could run at the Boston College track. And we started to find, you know, there was not just a few of us, there were a lot of us who wanted to keep running. We didn't want to quit, you know, because I think it was the first time almost, with the exception of a few people, the Johnny Kellys and the Clarence DeMars, and a few odd people like that around the country, that people started to say, you know, you can keep going. You can keep running, you know. And so that's what happened. And I joined Greater Boston. I started to improve. And what happened was we got a coach, Coach Billy Squires, who is one of America's, I don't want to call him, he's not controversial, but he was a kind of a unique guy because he was so, he was a track guy. Very high-level high school miler from Massachusetts, went to Notre Dame and duked it out with people who were near Olympians and everything. He was a near Olympian himself, but he was so motivational. Everything is motivation. Do you have people supporting you?
What were some of the things that he was doing that would motivate you?
It was his energy level. He absolutely loved the sport, you know, everything. And he was funny. He was funny, but he had tremendous energy, you know, because he was an athlete, you know. And but he could make us laugh, so we could have fun out there. But still, you know, I think a coach is someone. Everyone should have a coach, or someone who can help them, because it's like no man is an island, no woman is an island. No one is. You need your support. You know, it's like out in Nike now. They have the Bowerman babes. You know, Shalane and all the athletes that work together. You know, so it's that working together. That's how you improve. It's the only way, because you can never push yourself as hard alone. Most people cannot. You know, I was not like that. Yeah, it's more fun. You got to have some fun with this. If you don't have fun, and so we had a lot of fun road trips. You know, Billy would drive a car. We had no money. There'd be like 6 of us in a car, and we'd drive up to Dartmouth, and we'd run the 2 mile at the indoor track meet there. And John Tracy from Providence College in Ireland would be there, and my buddy from Greater Boston, Scott Graham, would be there, and there'd be 6 of us, and we'd be trying to break 9 minutes, and Tracy would win, and I'd get 5th place or something, and Scott would beat me with a kick, and Fred Doyle from the BAA or Greater Boston was there, and so we had a powerful team. It started to attract people. Pete Fissinger from New York State, 2-time Olympian, came down. It was just the depth. Randy Thomas.
It was fun. It was just being with the
It's like going back to high school and college. It doesn't matter your age. Age is just the classic thing. Truly a number in a lot of ways. It's like today I run with my friends about my age. You know, I can't stay with younger runners. But you still have your teammates. You know?
I'll say that you know,
it's very
it's interesting that you're saying this because it's making me think, and part of what I wanted to talk about the comeback was, you know, with me, I kind of fell out. I didn't fall out of running because I've done a marathon every year since 2002 when I started up here in Boston. But the last 5 or 6 years, I've really just been slogging through it.
Yeah.
And part of that has been because I used to be part of different teams. I used to run with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then since starting Charity Miles, starting, you know, my own business, I've become a lot more isolated, ironically.
Yeah.
And I haven't been able to do the track, you know, the club workouts that I used to do. And so my running was by myself.
Maybe you needed this break.
Yeah. It was part of it was, but I wasn't running with people in the way that I used to.
Yeah.
For me, running was always a social thing. I loved running with my friends. And
it is, totally.
With this diverse group of people, I used to run with...
You could have both.
I used to run with a Catholic priest.
Yeah.
And, and one of my other friends is gay, and the 3 of us would run together. And you would never think like a Jew, a Catholic priest, and a gay guy were like running together. We were such good friends. It was so much fun. And that was what would pull me out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning to go run in the winter with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
this sport is different.
So it was that camaraderie that really brought me out.
Yes. I always say, Gene, it's more than a sport. There are some, like, to me, football is a sport, but it's just a sport to me. You know, I just think this running and some of the other Olympic sports, like cycling maybe or swimming, you know, both sexes are there, men and women, you know, and their lifetime, and they're so powerful in terms of our mental and physical well-being. Something that a lot of times gets pushed aside, you know, and it's very tough, I think, to keep, how do you keep that in your life? But I agree with you. I think most people do quit running because they were in this kind of little bubble world of school, but then you go into the real world of business or a job or having kids or something, and then it's a lot more complex. And it's really, can you be with someone who, I found, you have to be with someone who understands that, and that's still hard. I mean, I still ended up going through divorce twice, It was more my problem and everything, but it's kind of tough to be in this sport, on your own. Sometimes you feel like you're on your own, and today I think there's more, groups but for a little while I was living in this neverland
right.
with Greater Boston Track Club. But that's the time that I started to improve, and I started to really succeed and say, wow, I finished ahead of this guy, this runner here, at the New England 15K up in Haverhill or something, or at the National 20K out in Fitchburg. Yeah, I got beaten by Dave Babaracki from California, but they flew him all the way in, and he didn't beat me by that much, 10 seconds or something like that. It was I really raced my best, but you do take your lumps. A lot of it was we over-raced. Once money started to come in under the table a little bit, at first time I ever was paid anything, and by the international rules, you could be given an air ticket and paid hotel and all that, and maybe like $35 per day for your living expenses.
Shamateurism.
Yeah, shamateurism. That existed, but I went to the Newark 20K, and the winner was the Boston champion, Neil Cusack from Ireland, in 74. Well, this is 75. I came in second, about 10, 15 seconds back of him, but I was close to the bus. He said, say nice things about the sponsor, and then maybe they'll give you some car money, because I had driven down. They gave me $50. So that's the way it was. Even after I won Boston, a month later, I won Boston, 1975, because I had improved. It took me 3 years. 3 years of running Boston, 3 years of training with Greater Boston Track Club.
3 years from that first Boston where you flamed out.
Yeah.
3 years later you won.
Yeah, I won. And because I was like a full-time athlete, I was trained twice a day.
What was that like can you kind of like just describe how that race unfolded and what that was like, the story you were telling yourself in that race? You
know what? The thing is, Gene, before that, I had gone the month before and had made the American team. And I'm a very patriotic type dude in a lot of ways.
Right.
And maybe some people think I'm not in some ways, but I really, really am. And so to make an American team was a big, big deal in those days. Very big deal. There was no money, but you would get the uniform in the mail and the invitation. This is mind-boggling, So I got invited to go. I went to the trials down in Florida for the World Cross Country Championships. Frank Shorter won it. He kicked all of our butts. I tied for third or fourth, with Gary Tuttle from Ventura, California. Went to the World Cross Country 3 weeks later, and I took the bronze medal. That was really maybe the best race I ever ran in my life, But no one knew cross country, but except for a few people. And Jock Semple knew I had taken a medal. I beat Frank there. Frank was 20th, And he said, Bill,
That was the one in Morocco?
Yes, I was in Morocco. And
I remember reading about that.
I said to Frank and Jeff Galloway, who are on the team, I'm going to run Boston next month. Do you think you could get me some shoes, some racing shoes? Yeah, because they were both running for Nike. They're both running for Nike. So I get a pair of shoes in the mail from Steve Prefontaine with his letter, a pair of Nike shoes.
Wow.
I won the race in those shoes. After the race, they took photos of my feet, because they always did that after Boston, and because they wanted to see how blistered your feet were. No blisters, nothing. I was 27 years old. You didn't get blisters too much.
So what were you telling yourself in Hopkinton that day when you were lining up? Were you saying, I'm going out to win this, I'm going to go out and give it my best? What were you hoping to do on that day? By beating Frank that day in World Cross Country, and I beat a lot of best in the world. I got all kicked in the end, But if you can medal in the World Cross Country, you're one of the best in the world. All the professional runners in the world all know this. Okay.
but no one else does, you know. But when I lined up for Boston, I had no idea. I was 14th the year before, you know, in 219. So I went from 219 down to 209. But we had a tailwind day in Boston. And about once every 10 years, you get a tailwind day. But I felt good. It was a great day. The morning of the race, my brother went over and he went to a hardware store because I was cold standing out at the start, and he got me a pair of white gloves. And these became my good luck gloves. So whenever I wore those, it was cool weather. I felt like I could run with anyone. When you feel like you can race with anybody, it's all mental. If you got it, so I had built up suddenly, now I think I can do this. So we take off. My buddy Tom Fleming from New Jersey is there. He's won New York twice. He's won Cleveland. He's won L.A., but he always wanted to win Boston. He's taken second, you know. But so Tom knew it, and I went out with Tom and everything. We're duking it out. Tom Dudarian from Greater Boston is there. Ron Hill, Boston champion from Great Britain. There's a guy there from Canada named Jerome Drayton. Well, he and I, someone yelled, "Go Canada." He had on his Maple Leaf jersey, you know. He's representing his country. And I said, damn it, this is the United States. I'm going to duke it out with him. So we started to really duel with each other. It was like mano a mano, you know, that type of mental thing. Like, I don't know, I'm just going to try to go. And the next thing I know...
was caution to the wind?
Yeah, just caution to the wind. We had a tailwind day. It was a perfect day, Gene. It was easy compared to Boston in the heat, which is 5 times harder. Everything is the weather in distance running.
Yep. Everything
is the weather. And that makes Boston the most challenging major marathon in the world to do well at. And I don't care what your pace is, you know, because we have fluky weather in New England spring.
Yeah.
Jerome didn't know who I was or something, and he finally let me go. And I was just running like hell, going through the hills, and Jacques Semple was on the bus, and he said, "You're going to break the record, go for it," or something like that. And then around the 23-mile mark, standing on the side of the road is my old high school buddy, Jason Kehoe. And he's standing there, and he gives me a yell, you know, and it's like go back in time.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It was like going back in time. It was just priceless. So I was pretty psyched. But when I won, I was shocked. I was in a state of shock. I didn't believe I'd run that fast, you know.
But not only did you win, you broke the American record, right?
Yeah. So, you know, today they say it's an aided course. Well, maybe we did have a tailwind that day. I think my real record is from 79 when we had no wind, you know. But my brother Charlie was there at the finish. He had a camera taking some photos, and so it changed my life. You know, it changed my life, and suddenly I was the fastest marathoner in the world that year with 2:09:55, and suddenly I felt
You dropped like 10 minutes off your time.
I dropped 10 minutes.
That is significant.
My body, you know what it was, Gene? I needed that period. You know, before when I ran the World Cross Country Trials against Frank Shorter, I was coming off the flu. I was a little sick. I needed that time to not run some days and rest your body. And then I actually did a 200-mile training week. And in 1 week, you know, I did 200-mile training week. I was pretty strong, you know. I said, I'm going to give it a shot. And there was no money, but there was a beautiful medal. It was a great feeling. And anyway, it was just fun to be there with Coach Squires, you know.
Now, you know, so you won that, and you're still racing. You race a gazillion races, and since then you've won 3 other Bostons and 4 New Yorks.
Yes,
as well as you won a marathon on 5 continents. I mean, you're probably one of the most decorated.
I got into marathoning.
You got into it, right?
Yeah, but it was fun. It is just fun.
What was the story in that race? How did that race compare to the 3 other Bostons or the 4 other New Yorks that you were
absolutely. Every
winning?
Single race totally
or
unique.
any of the other races that you've won on.
Every race is totally unique. But once you do well in a race, and if you live there, our edge, all of us, you know, my buddy Tom from New Jersey, he knew what Boston stood for. This is America's race.
Right.
The old American race and the oldest marathon in the world. So he understood that. I learned that, but it took me a while, and Amby Burfoot grew up under the tutelage of Johnny Kelly and that whole New England influence. I started to really feel that then. And, but I had actually run New York and in 74. And I went to New York because I wanted to go. The race was sponsored by Olympia Airways, and I wanted to win the race because first prize was a trip to Olympia, Greece. I'm a crazy dude. I love the whole history.
Yeah.
Our sport is global, and all that. Like they've got the World Marathon Majors now, and people do all the majors or something. Yep. Well, for me, I wanted to see if I could win a trip to Greece, the ancient Olympic Games. And but it was September, like yesterday, 90 degrees. And I went out way too hard. I was still a new marathoner. I think it takes 5 or 10 marathons to really learn the sport and how you got to respect the weather and the distance, So for 20 miles, I was in the lead. If it had been cool, I think I could have won, but it was not cool. I'm on the side of the road.
Yeah.
And I finally, a friend helped me get back into the race, but after the story for me, the 5 borough New York City, the story with that was Frank and I were neck and neck. We're pretty even, He was better than me on the track. Sometimes I could beat him in cross country. Other times,
like Ali and Frazier.
Yeah, we were real rivals, and we didn't really know each other real well then. Now we're friends, we're like buddies, and but then it was a little different, but Fred LeBeau, the kind of the guru, the founder of New York Road Runners Club and everything, along with Ted Corbett and others, he came to the Falmouth Road Race in 76 after the Olympic Marathon, where I had a horrible race.
Right.
And I had a foot injury, and I lost my fitness. And I got, if you're
so
not
you
ready...
went from winning Boston to coming in 70th in the Olympics?
40th. 40th out of about 60 people.
Yeah.
So I was...
I had a bad day in the Olympics. Everybody has bad days.
Yeah, but the worst possible day to have a bad day.
Yeah.
So that was my curse. I love what the Olympics stands for, the world come together, and all that, but it was, I got beat up and I was crushed. But Fred LeBeau came to Falmouth, and Frank he beat me there. That's another story, the Falmouth Road Race, and how Frank and we dueled there for 5 years. He beat me, I beat him, we were very even. But Fred LeBeau said, you know what, we're thinking of doing the 5 borough New York City Marathon. Would you guys come down? We said, yeah, okay. We're going to come down, And I knew Fred because I had met him at Boston and New York in 74 as well, And New York City 76 was my Olympic race, really. It was a beautiful, cool weather day, and I had recovered from my foot injury. I did some 140-mile weeks and everything, and Frank was in the race, so I could race the guy who just has 2 Olympic, a gold and a silver, and a bunch of other top runners, and it was very exciting. Running through the streets of New York, it was mind-boggling. No one knew if this was going to work. We're following this blue line. We didn't know where the heck we were going. Just following the line. Fred didn't know if it was going to work. The whole city, people in the city were
before
nervous.
That, it was all in Central Park.
It was all in Central Park, 4 laps Central Park. So this was the kickoff, really, for worldwide big city marathoning. The World Marathon Majors. This was the kickoff race. And I just
you started on Staten Island? You started on the Verrazano?
Yeah, we started on the bridge. You go over that bridge. This is the most spectacular.
Did they close the bridge for you, or were there cars and you were like running next to the cars?
Oh, no, they closed the bridge. And I stayed at a friend, high school buddy's house on that side of the bridge. And morning of the race, I forgot to bring a pair of shorts, So he went next door and borrowed a pair of shorts from the local high school kids' soccer team. I wore those shorts. So it was just we were always winging it in those days.
Yeah.
It wasn't like today you'd have people there.
Dialed in
your shoe company would have this, that, and it wasn't like that. We were like the average runner today. We were winging it, totally winging it. But it was very exciting.
Friend of my brother-in-law, one of his family friends ran in one of the first New York City marathons.
Yeah.
You said he wore jean shorts.
Yeah,
I can't imagine. Like the chafing that would
happen. Well, you know, it was before the big boom, and Shorter started his company.
Yeah.
I later started mine. Moving Comfort came on the scene. Nike, all the shoe companies then built up. But before that, there wasn't really too good of gear to wear.
So you're really like pioneering that first 5-borough race.
That was the first one. You know, so what I was trying to say was, mentally, when you think it's your race, sort of, and you got a little, you ran well. Now you got to, this is where you should do well again, you know? Mm-hmm. And so that was my edge at New York and Boston, you know? That was my edge. I had won once there, and it was my comeback race.
But I mean, you know,
for a while.
4 in Boston.
You only have a while.
4 in New York. No one's ever done that. I mean, that's just dominance, like,
you know,
beyond. But like, were you learning something different in each of those races? Was there a difference, an evolution for you personally?
A couple of times it was warm at New York because they had moved it to late October, you know, for cooler weather. But still, one year I won there, I think it was 79 degrees. But I still felt like people would come in and I'd race them, like Gary Bjorklund, who was an Olympian for the U.S., 10,000 meters in 76, made the Olympic final. Great talent, but I think he was a little conflicted. Am I a 10K guy or am I a marathoner? Well, he did run a 2:10 marathon, but I kind of felt, well, wait a second. I'm a pure marathoner. Maybe I got the edge on him, you know. And at New York, he doesn't know New York. Everything is like, do you know the course? So I knew the course. I knew the Queensboro Bridge, where you can start picking up the pace a little. You know, maybe throwing in some surges, looking for your competition. All of this works for a little while for everybody. And this is true for everyone's career. Today, people have, I think, sometimes longer careers at the very top of the sport, you know, because they have more rest and there's more scientific training, you know. You know, coaches like Schumacher at Nike and Alberto Salazar at Nike and all the great coaches from around the world, you know. And at the high school and collegiate level, they're more and more aware of how to help their athletes, you know. But so for a while, I had great fun. But I still love to go to these races and meet the runners and cheer them on.
Right.
You know.
So now that you're still racing, what does the marathon mean to you now? What do your races mean to you now versus if maybe it's the same as what they meant to you back then, but what do they mean to you now?
I mean, I'm very proud to have won Boston 4 times and New York 4 times. I have the most wins of any guy at the New York City Marathon.
Yeah.
It'll be almost 50 years next year.
Wild.
And I know the competition's higher level today and everything, but still, I still did do that. So, and I am tied for number 2 all time at Boston on the men's side, you know, with Robert Cheruiyot from Kenya and Gerard Cote. So, to me, you know, it's like, you know, in the old days, they didn't give us a flag to wave and all that, but I feel it.
What are you feeling now when you're going out there to race? Like you said, you're about to go do a race.
It's tough. It's tougher.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I was Boston Billy or
Are you
something,
competitive with yourself? Are you competitive with other people out there? Or are you just
sometimes
looking to be a part of the spirit of the day?
You know,
what's driving you now?
I understand the sport at all different levels, but you know, I'm 71 now, and I still like to try to compete in my age group. I've done that my whole life. I quit that one time, Jeff, you know, but after I came back, I don't want to quit again. But and you know, I was able to I call it riding the wave. You know, all these professional runners, we try to ride the wave, stay in the sport if you can, and it's very tricky. You know, financially too. And I was lucky because I won some big races. So I had support from a shoe company, you know, and I ran for ASICS and everything. But some of the runners, you know, my friend Tom Fleming, he ran for Nike for a long time. And a lot of runners didn't get any deal, you know, and they were really high-level runners. But now when I go to the races, I love to meet the runners who are doing every single race. I love going to New York, meeting the runners. I mean, I was on a run just this weekend with my girlfriend, you know, and we met some guy who recognized me.
Yeah.
So we started talking. They said, I'm doing New York. So I started talking about the course, you know, and how to run and be careful at New York and what Boston's like. And
Actually, because we're going to put this in, probably release this the week of the marathon. What is when you look at the New York City Marathon or the Boston Marathon these days, and when you were running it, there was hundreds of runners in it, or maybe a few thousand runners in it. Now it's 30, 40,000 people in it.
Yeah.
And they're different types of runners.
Yes.
People are coming with lots of different stories, lots of different reasons for being there. Some of them are really competitive and fast, and some of them
some are doing their first marathon.
Some are doing their first, and
absolutely,
they've got different reasons. People are doing it for charity. Some are doing it not for charity, but for some other purpose. When you see all those people,
that's the.
What do you? To me, how do you feel?
That's the ultimate sport. This is the ultimate in sports. It has everything. Not every sport has everything. Running has everything. That's why runners, we're lucky. We're all lucky. But if you can go out there and, I do work with the Boston Marathon fundraising group, Impact Melanoma. My grandfather died of melanoma. And my dad was hit with it and had surgery, so I'm very aware, and I know all the different groups, not all of them, because there's a lot of different groups, new people, team and training and all that. And I've done a zillion different things. Every single race is a fundraiser today. My brother and I started a fundraising race back in the 70s. In 1977, we ran one of the first Jingle Bell runs in the country. And it was, and it had my name on it, and now they're all over the country,
Right.
And we later used it as a fundraiser for Massachusetts Special Olympics. In 75, after I won Boston, I got a letter in the mail, and it was from someone who had MS or wanted to raise money for the MS Society. Will Cloney, who was the race director, and I took a big photo together, which my brother, I think, has this big placard, and we would get, and so it wasn't like today where it's very formal and you raise a certain amount of money, but people did run for the MS Society and said, thank you for giving me the chance. I didn't have anything to do with it, but I just, people would write me letters, and I would write them back, and Will Cloney said, yeah, we can do this. So I think this has always been our sport. It's always been different. It's not just about 15 people on the field, It's a huge, more than just a sport. That's how I always thought of our sport, So I know the people that are out there, with Impact Melanoma. I meet some of these people, their families. I know the stories, people who died from this or that. One of my friends, he runs Boston every year for Dana-Farber, lost a lot of people to cancer in his family. So
and you battled cancer.
Yeah, I'm a prostate cancer person. And so when I turned 60, that happened right as I turned 60. So I ran with a shirt, I think it was some prostate cancer awareness group, So I think all of us runners, we're all the same. We all want to do our part, and I think everybody does.
Yeah.
So this is the sport that gives everybody a chance.
Right. Well, we just added a great prostate cancer charity to the app, Zero Cancer, so I want to give them a nice shout out there.
Yeah.
What do you want to turn it around, walk back up?
Yeah.
Did you have any inkling, maybe because the boom was starting with, Frank Shorter?
Yeah.
Did you have any inkling that what you guys were doing back then would turn into what it has turned into today? That the New York City Marathon would one day have 40,000 people on the Verrazano Bridge?
I'll say this. I always believed in the sport. Always. I always believed in the sport. I always felt it was beautiful. This is the sport, and though you may be someone who hates running,
Right.
but then you just got to find the one you love. But I do believe this has the most reach and maybe the most global power, really.
Well, it's the fewest barriers to entry.
Yeah, and it's global. All over the world, running is big and it's going to be big. I've always felt that, And when I won Boston, I got invited to Fukuoka Marathon in Japan. That and Tokyo are the big Japanese marathons. And marathoning in Japan is like baseball and football here.
Right.
It's major league TV coverage.
Wow.
If you are high level, it's big deal. It's great, So I got to see that, and. But I don't know if we knew that this was great stuff. And whenever you saw a runner, I would always, back in the 70s, you'd wave to them.
Yeah.
Today, sometimes when you wait for a runner, they look like sometimes I think some of that's missing.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it's so much bigger,
Well, it's one of the things that got me really into the sport is when I started running on the Charles River here, people would wave. They'd give you 5.
Yeah.
Actually,
it's still there.
And when I moved to New York, they don't do it so much in New York. It's different style of city. But I love that about New York. People would run by and give you 5.
So I think running is the sport, Jeff, that breaks all the barriers.
Mm-hmm.
I always said one of the things I liked about running, and maybe this goes back to my personality in the days of the Vietnam War, and I liked it that everyone got along.
Right.
It doesn't matter your religion, your race, your income, or nothing. We're all just, and you make friends, and like you were talking about, running with a priest and your gay friend, and all this. And, everyone does get along. No one gets in fights at road races. Come on, you guys. Let's live good. And I think in this sport, you live good. And that's what we all should aim for.
That's one of the things that really hooked me on it was I did my first Chicago Marathon in 2002, and I thought I was just I just wanted to do it to check it off the list.
Yeah.
And
were you a runner in high school and college?
I started the track team at my high school when I was a junior in high school.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't good enough to play on the baseball team or the tennis team.
Sure.
And I wanted a sport to play.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I wasn't fast enough to be a sprinter. And
yeah.
But I was willing to suck it up for the mile.
Yeah, there you go.
So I ran the mile, but I was not very fast. The other schools usually had 2 people that were running in the 4s.
Wow.
And I would, trot in at 3rd place in the 5s.
So, but you were getting points for your team, and you were doing.
Yeah, our team wasn't very. Our team has actually been pretty good since I've graduated, but in the years, it's been a long time. But then I started running because I started to box when I was in college and in law school, and I would run to get in shape for that. But
absolutely,
I decided I wanted to do the Chicago Marathon.
Yeah,
and I thought I was just check it off my list.
Huh.
I remember being at the start line of the Chicago Marathon, and just looking around at, I think back then there was 20,000 people. I signed up for it 3 weeks before. It didn't sell out back then. And
yeah,
I was just completely amazed by all these people. And I could see on each person's face they were from a different country. They had a different story, all sorts of ages and sizes. And it was amazing that we were all there together.
And everyone's in a pretty good mood.
Everyone was in a great mood. Well,
happy.
This is the start line. Everyone was very...
Some were intent.
In themselves, in this moment where...
you get nervous.
There was no cell phones, so people weren't taking selfies like they do today. Everybody was very present within themselves. And it was amazing to me that we were all about to perform this dance together, write this story togetally.
Yeah.
And people had all sorts of different religious views, I'm sure, political views, I'm sure, come from totally different ways of life, but there we all were together.
It's true.
And I was like, this is something that I want to be a part of.
That's right.
And
it's true.
That's what hooked me. And then I did that. Then I did New York a couple weeks later after that. I weaseled my way into the New York City Marathon a few weeks after that.
Yeah.
And I've been hooked ever since, because that day, being on the Verrazano Bridge, being in Hopkinton, even the Clarence DeMar Marathon up in New Hampshire is one of my favorite ones that I've ever done.
Or DeMar.
DeMar, I may have mispronounced it, but I just love being there with that group of people, kind of like what you were saying. I love the spirit of the day, just being with all these amazing people.
Well, look at the movie,
different stories.
The documentary, Spirit of the Marathon.
Right.
That really
that is
captured
really good
a lot of it.
I'll put that in the show notes.
But I think you're right, and it's cool you do this podcast, because you got to figure, Gene, we're still a tiny group,
Yeah.
I want everyone to become a runner.
Yeah. Well, look at
or give it a try.
So many people have become a runner because of you, either specifically or more generally the movement that you were igniting.
I think
you, Joan Benoit, Jeff Galloway, Frank Short, you guys are
and
it's unbelievable.
Every country has their athletes that played that role in their country. And I think That's one of the things I really love, that it is an international sport. You know what I mean? And you really see that maybe best at New York City. And, you know, I've been there all the years, just about every year since, you know.
You see all the countries. I love it. Going up to the Javits Center.
Yeah.
Everyone's, like, you hardly even hear English.
You see like 100 people wearing their French.
Yeah. Like, everything's a different country.
Italian runners, Spanish.
I remember my first New York,
English,
just being out on Staten Island. You got to get out there at like 5 a.m. before the race started at like 10 or something. You got to be out there 5 hours early, just being out there.
Yeah.
And it was like I was in like the World's Fair. Like like people from Korea and Israel and South Africa and Italy, like every country was there with their jackets, and nobody was speaking English to me. But I was like, I can't believe I'm a part of this.
Yeah. There's no question that this sport is like I think it's going to keep growing and growing, Gene, because why would it be limited? You know, I think there'll be future running booms. You know, one of the big changes, of course, several big changes when women came in.
Yeah.
You know, and started to get more and more support, and the rules changed. They had to fight tooth and nail for it, and people like Jackie Hansen, you know, Julia Chase. Mm-hmm. Roberta Gibb.
I'm actually going to meet her after him. Going to interview Bobby Gibb.
Yes. and Kathy Switzer and a bunch of different athletes. You know, they were all trying to get into the sport. They love this. Women, there's no reason. You know, all of us guy runners knew that. I remember once I was at the Manchester road race with Amby Burfoot in the 70s, and that was my first ever road race. And 66 as a high school senior. And there were no girls there, but no one, at that time, there was not much thinking about it. It was just, you were just a runner yourself there. But I remember Amby Burfoot was there, and he won 9 times at that race. And there was like 4 or 5 women there who wanted to run. But the officials of the race would not let them. They wouldn't let him take part. So first prize was a TV. So Amby won the race. He picked up his TV, and he brought it over to a woman named Charlotte Lettis. Lettis, Charlotte Lettis. And she was, I think she was the first winner of the Legs Mini run in New York as well. But he gave his TV to her. He was trying to make a point, you know. So that's what the runners did in those days, you know.
So as we kind of wrap it up here, what is your advice from 4-time winner of the New York City Marathon to all the people who are going to be lining up on Staten Island, you know, when this airs, you know, the week that this airs?
Think about why you're there. Why do you want to run? You know, sometimes I find myself making a mistake, you know, and I'm tired or I got a little mini injury or something, and I think, I don't really like this. I don't know if I want to do this. But think about really, what do you want? Why are you there? And take that pressure off. Right. Take the pressure off. You're here because you want to be here, you know, and you want to, maybe you are doing something, running for some group that's has powerful personal meaning to you. So you got to make it personal, I think. And when you do that, nothing can stop you. You know, you're going to keep going. And that's our sport, I think, really, in a nutshell.
That's great advice. Great advice from a legend.
Sometimes you have to say, you know what? I was thinking of doing this race. Yeah, I'm nervous, but I think I can do it. And you know what the other thing is? If you can run with a friend, Gene, because I told you my first Boston. Well, my second marathon I ran with a friend, it was Tom Derderian, Greater Boston Track Club, and he paced me for like 16 miles. So today they have the pacers. Right. So if you can run with a friend, that's key. You know, your first marathon, you know, and don't, you know, you got to be careful of the weather. Yeah. You know, New York is usually good, though.
Yeah, but I hope it's chilly. The heat, it's funny, you were talking about the heat. The heat totally gets me, too. Now that the temperature's dropped a little bit, like when it was, like my mile time has gone like a minute faster. Yeah. With just a little bit of break in the heat. Yeah.
But this is an endurance sport, it needs cool weather, you know.
So obviously advice, hydrate well.
Yes, and just know that a lot of people, you know, I remember, I think it was Jeff Galloway who said this, and he was at a clinic he was doing, and he said, you know, or it was Cree Kelly from Colorado, he said, you know, when you're out there running a race, people see you. They see you. Right. That's how a lot of people get going. Yeah. They say, you know, I'm going to do this.
Right, just like you were watching the Boston Marathon when you were living half a mile from the finish line.
It took me 2 years.
But you saw it.
But it got me going again.
Yeah, it makes you think, I wonder if I could do that. And it also, when people that are on the course, right, everybody who's running, you're inspiring someone else in your life to get out there.
Yeah, you do. That's what Joan Benoit says. She says, we inspire each other. Everyone does.
Right.
That's why our sport's different, It's different than everyone sitting in a stadium, just watching 12 people or something.
And I'll tell you, just personally, my reason for doing this has changed over the years. And my why now is I have a 3-year-old son, Max.
Yeah.
And he's not going to remember. He's not going to remember this, but I want him to see me. I want him to see me doing this.
Yeah, that's
because I want him to think. Maybe he doesn't want to be a runner, but I want him to think. I wonder if I could do.
Absolutely.
And
I think
you are inspiring someone else when you're out there.
Yeah, and your kids. I think the whole thing is, most people never find a sport and they're not active. No one believed in them. That's the real story. No one believed in them, sort of. But if you have that, or you can get out the door with a friend and go for a walk, then you're going to keep going,
Yeah, go with a friend.
But it's hard to go on your own.
It is hard to go on your own. I'll tell you, it's been getting back with the track club, which I've been running with, the Brooklyn Track Club. Big shout out to them, has made a big impact. Getting me back into it.
They have a big team and all that.
Yeah, so.
Well, you got a half marathon in Brooklyn, right?
There is a half marathon. There's also a marathon there. I haven't run that one yet, but thank you so much. This has been spectacular. You could not. I'm just looking at where we are right now.
Tractors are out here.
It's just this has been amazing. I'm so grateful that you took your time out of your day to walk with me and to share this. And thanks to everyone out there for coming and walking and running along with us right now. Get the book Marathon Man.
And you know what? 3 cheers to the New York City Marathoners.
Yeah, 3 cheers to the New York City Marathoners.
Have no fear.
Excellent. Bill, thank you so much.
Okay.
Every mile matters.
Absolutely.